I want to share with everybody here about how I took the month of March off and what expanded, what happened, what all I went through, all that goody goody. And so I took the month of March off. Even more specific, let me say this: I was guided by the universe to take the month of March off. And that month of March, everything changed for the better for me by letting go of how things are. And let me just start off by the story, right? It was the early parts of March. I'm going to the VA for an appointment because I've been having some trouble sleeping. I'm now 45, so I'm in that perimenopause, about to begin menopause. So I want to talk to the doctor about some stuff. And the first things first, the moment I got up, everything was great. I did my normal routine and I get in the car and there's this traffic. And traffic for me, for my PTSD, I feel claustrophobic. I feel like walls are caving in. I feel like, oh my gosh, how am I going to save all these people if something goes wrong? What the heck, right? So in the meantime, I'm breathing through it. I'm using my grounding, my techniques that I've had throughout the years of just meditation, mantras, breathing through. It's okay. This is just what I'm experiencing and all of that. And so I finally get to the VA and the parking lot is just slammed, right? It's just packed. There's hardly a parking spot left. And so that, again, is another trigger, right? Having something be so full, right? It makes me nervous when there's so many people. And again, breathing through it. But this time, I'm about 15 minutes late. I feel horrible. And I walk into the VA. And usually what I do is I go upstairs, I go to the bathroom, I use the head, and I kind of just take in a breath. But unfortunately, I checked in at the kiosk. I was on my way to the bathroom and I hear the lady down the hall, hollering my name, hey, it's your turn, let's go. And so I didn't get that chance to pause. I didn't get that chance to come within again. And so as I see her, I could tell she's kind of rushing me a little bit, but she's being kind. And immediately when the doctor comes in, I can feel, if you're like me and like most of you that listen to Embrace Life Boldly, is that I feel energy. I feel, we're empathic, right? We're all that empathic where we can sense a little something, something. And so I sensed he was just kind of frustrated with me because I was running late. So lo and behold, I just talked to him about sleep. And I talked to him about, menopause and how I wanted to talk to a doctor and all this other stuff. And he just straight says, well, your disability is PTSD. So of course you're having trouble sleeping, you have PTSD. And I don't know, it was the trigger, right? It was the amount of the way he said it. Because one, I have been doing so much spiritual work and so much work in the sense of my meditation and my body work that I literally thought for at least past the 6 months, I didn't even have PTSD anymore. It was just non-existent. Needless to say, I said, excuse the fuck out of me. I'm not here to talk about my PTSD. I'm here to talk about this. And he gets agitated. That gets me agitated because I'm a match, right? So sometimes I try to match the emotions that you're expressing onto me, and I'm a match because I'm defensive at this point. And I'm defensive from the very beginning because I've been triggered up the yin yang. So he immediately calls mental health. He's like, I'm going to call some mental health on you. And so mental health came in and they start talking to each other as if I'm not even in the room. I'm non-existent, right? I do not exist because they're just talking. And immediately she looks at me and she says, let's go to come to my space with me, right? Let's have a talk. So basically he is trying to admit me. He's trying to admit me to mental health, to psychiatric care. And we get into, and when going to the other room is a little hard for my PTSD as well, because I'm so used to going exactly where I need to go. So if I'm in a different area of a building that I don't know what's happening or what the exits are or who's all there, and there's a bunch of corners, I get triggered. That's another one of my triggers, right? So all that happens. Luckily enough, she is super awesome at her job that she was able, I just looked at her and said, I need to just take a moment may I have a moment right now. I have not been able to utilize my techniques of being grounded and centered. And right now, that's exactly what I need to do. And she was super awesome at her job. And she was just a super person, super great person, because yes, she allowed me to be able to go into that space and center, right? So now that I caught my breath, I'm feeling my body again, I immediately just spoke with her about all the triggers that I had that morning and all the ways that I was trying to come out of it, and how he just like, bam, splat, just bam, just hit me with something that I thought I had overcome. And I was fully and completely in the moment, right? I was experiencing the triggers and staying grounded and present with myself. I spoke my truth, which is what some of us, it's hard for us to do, right? And I asked for guidance. I realized what I went through that morning, recalling every trigger, is that up until the moment the doctor mentioned my PTSD, that I was aware the whole time. And how amazing is that, to be able to be aware of the whole time of what is happening and be able to utilize the things that you need, that I needed in that moment. Needless to say, she didn't admit me. She didn't say that needed to be, something they needed to do. She actually was like, what the fuck was your doctor thinking? Not kind, but I'm not here to sit here and judge this doctor or judge what his actions were. I was late. He was running late. I mean, everything is a mountain, right? And so whether it's a rock that we put there or a hole that someone else has dug, it's one of these things where our awareness at point can be so magical when we are present in the moment. So I left. But what I did was, I got back to my truck in the parking lot after the appointment was over. I was still shaking. I was crying. I had this overwhelming feeling of holy shit and hell's yeah at the same time. I realized that in that moment that the old stories of my life, the reasons why I have PTSD, that I was no longer attached to them. But by not being attached to them, my human ego had room to thrive, right? It was like, okay, you're not attached to these old stories, so let me give you another story to have. That was my way of thinking. So I allowed my spiritualness, I allowed my spirit, I allowed my practice of awareness, and I allowed my truth to show up. And the most beautiful part of it all is I surrendered, right? Like, not in the way our society teaches us about surrender, of like, throwing our hands up in the air, like, oh, well, this is happening, it is what it is, but by the sense of like, I let go to allow change, to allow shifts to happen, and to be in a growth mindset. And look, again, I could have blamed the doctor. I could have blamed the system. I could have went crazy and talked shit to myself. I could have jumped to that self-sabotaging window that I used to jump out of all the time. But I didn't. I stayed present in the experience. Even though it was chaos, even though it was like, wow, I still stayed present and in the experience I was having. So like, I was in the now in that moment. I was in the complete now. And once I was in the now, I felt for the first time in a long time, let me say that, I continue to step into the paradigm of truth. As I spent the next whole month of March, I was 25 days later, shedding false beliefs, right? I was shedding narratives. I was shedding stories that kept fueling my egoic mind to humanly act on triggers, to humanly go to that place of you're fucked, right? But look, I have PTSD. It will always be inside me, just like anger, just like pain, fear, hate, frustration, guilt, and shame. But just because I have it within me doesn't mean I act from that place. I choose to respond to life just as it is in the moments as I'm experiencing it. I had a friend once say, she said, violence lives within me. I just choose not to become violent. But it's so true for all of us. All of those things live within inside us, and it's about where do you want to come from? So my month of March was all about a healing surrender. And if I could leave you anything with that, it would be these three things is, first, the great Michael Singer has a book called The Surrender. I think it's called, actually, I think I have it right here. Let me see if I can grab it. It's called the Surrender Experiment, and it's truly amazing. But the first thing Michael Singer said is that the practice of surrender is done in two parts. Let go of the personal reactions of like and dislike that from inside your mind and heart. So it's like, for me in that moment, I could have liked or disliked the moment. I could have disliked and liked what was happening, but I didn't put any label to it. It's not that I liked it or disliked it. I was just in it, right? And two, with the reluctant sense of clarity, you simply look to see what is being asked of you by the situation unfolding in front of you. And so for me in that moment, I was asking, what is unfolding? What is my truth? What is right in front of me that I need to take a look at? And the last and final thing is ask yourself, what would have happened to you if you inwardly surrendered your resistance and let the flow of life be in charge? I mean, ask that to yourself every day. I would love it if all of you would ask yourself that question every single day. Like, just every single day, ask yourself, what would happen to me if I inwardly surrendered my resistance and let the flow of life be in charge? Like, I'm not saying like, woo, willy-nilly, let someone just, take your money or, talk shit to you. I'm saying in the sense of like the things that you're resistance to, like fear and going for that job or talking about that podcast, or maybe now finally becoming, a spiritual person. I mean, those kind of things. Because for my PTSD episode in March, my life was asking me to get out of the way and let the universe do her thing. And I am so glad I did. And that is why I took the month of March off. So again, this April is just going to be a lot of talk about that, about what I experienced, what it was like. So stay tuned, first and foremost. And above all, if you're there and you're looking for ways out, look, go to my website, coach-tammy.com. Find me on this Facebook, this YouTube, however you're listening to this, you can click somewhere and it will get to me. And comment, and just let me know what your struggles are. Like, I would love to hear what your wins and losses are. I mean, it's truly amazing once we can build something together. And until next time, keep loving, keep growing, and definitely keep embracing life boldly.